Imagine being 17, your very first pro match, and you're staring across the net at the defending US Open champion. Scoville Jenkins takes us inside that night against Andy Roddick and what it was really like to face Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer. And welcome to another edition of the Best Three podcast. I'm still Alvin. That's still Torrey, and we are joined by Scoville Jenkins. I figured it was only right for us to have Sco back on the pod, one, by popular demand, and two, as Kalamazoo just wrapped up and the U.S. Open's right around the corner. It only makes sense to talk to someone who's seen both. Sco was a 2004 champion at Kalamazoo, earned the wild card to take on Andy Roddick in that year's U.S. Open. But before we dig into today's conversation, gentlemen, how are we doing?
Alvin, we're doing great. Appreciate you guys having me back on. Last time was great. Look forward to this time as well.
Yep. The people have been asking about you, Sco. They've been begging. When's Sco coming back? Yeah. When's Sco coming back?
Well, these kids are holding me down, man. I got three young kids. Man. They're holding me down. They're holding me down.
So Sco can appreciate this. That when we were training together, Alvin, it was a couple early mornings. Sco Senior dropped him off, and he was getting. Help my little one get Cheerios. You know what I'm saying? And,
right.
Zave still talks about it. Yes, go help got me Cheerios. Come on, they got my breakfast on the table. And I'm like, well, now Sco's got his own little ones. He's putting Cheerios on the table. You know what I mean? And it's funny now that my youngest is just started grad school up in Boulder. We were just there all last week, and here you are
man,
now. Got your own little ones, man. You're going to parent orientation. You know what I mean? So it's just funny. Alvin's got some young ones. It's fun. It's so cool to me, having worked with you both, to see you both being great fathers, man, and just being great individuals. I mean, that's really, as far as I'm concerned, not to say this, I don't want to miss this in the closing. I want to say that right now, as a coach who's seen you both grow up, man, you guys are two great people, man. And I'm happy to have been on the other side of the net from you. Happy to have been on the same side of the net with you for a few summers as well. And like I said, happy to be on this pod tonight.
Well, I appreciate the words, Torrey. And we're just we're all lucky to still be here together. Sure. we all go back a pretty good ways, and it's nice to be able to kind of kick around and tell these stories and kind of reminisce from different vantage points.
Reminisce. Love that song. Old school.
Okay, so I won't waste too much time. We'll get into it, and then we'll kind of see where this goes. I think this should be a fun one. So Sco, 2004, right? You're the 3 seed at Kalamazoo. I went back and did my research. You pretty much were.
I was a 3 seed.
I wrote it down. I
thought I was like a 7. I thought I was a 7-8 seed.
Nah, okay. you were a 3 seed and dog walking people all the way through that tournament. Didn't drop a set before you got to the. I think till maybe the finals.
Yeah,
lost one set in the finals against
Scotty Owusu got one set off him after 2 sets down. He played phenomenal. And by the way, shout out to Scott Alzma and Tom Walker and the whole Kazoo crowd. We were not in a friendly environment where we go. You know what I mean?
No, it was packed. I remember walking in, it was packed. It was packed.
Scott Alzma, Alvin, if you may recall, was from Kalamazoo. So
right, yeah.
The whole town was all out.
So if you remember that stadium, it was standing room only. It was packed.
There was a row where me, Sco, and the family we were staying with had a row. That was pro Sco. I mean, you know me, Alvin. I'm a pretty big guy. When I got up and, Sco. I mean, I had literally 3,500 looking at me like, who you cheering for, brother? I'm like, hey, Sco. I was like, just to make sure you knew you weren't alone, brother. But that crowd was out in full force. Half of them didn't even know tennis, but they were there cheering Kalamazoo's own.
Hometown kid.
And Scott, great dude as well. Always was, and Tom Walker, who really kind of, first Kalamazoo, right? Sco took us in, helped us get some good heads.
He did.
Took care of us. I remember the first time Sco was hit with Rajiv Ram, who had come up to train a few days before. Raj's already in we called him Rampus at the time because his game was so much like Pete. But Rampus was hitting some balls in with Sco, and he went on to win the 16th, if I'm not mistaken, early those years, right, Sco? Maybe that was one of my first ones, but you were probably still 14, Sco, if I'm not mistaken, when you played your first one in the 16s. But long story, Alvin, it was I take it to that, to that time back in the day. But bro, that final was rough. I mean, Sko literally went in and slayed the dragon. I mean, it was. And I don't think you ever played Scott before, had you, Sko?
Never. That was my
No,
first
yeah,
time.
I don't think you
Doubles,
ever played.
doubles we played, but
Right.
for singles, practice a lot together, but never
Yeah.
played a match. Never played in a match.
Well, let's go backwards just a little bit, right? So you played Scott in the final, but in the semi, right? You play Phil Simmons, right? And up to this point, like you're rolling. Phil had a tough quarterfinal match against Odesnik, right? And I think Odesnik might have been the number 1 seed in that event.
Yeah,
probably
he had a high ATP ranking.
Yeah.
At that age.
Phil took him out, I think 6th in the 3rd, right? So coming into that match, you've got Phil. You guys play a tough first set, goes into a breaker, and then you win it. He pulls out after that, right? So now we're moving from the semifinal onto the final, right? And for those who don't know, the winner of the boys 18s USTA National Hard Courts gets an automatic wild card into the main draw of the US Open, right? It is the crown jewel in US junior tennis. Like, this is the prize, right? So now we're moving into that final, right? So you know what you're playing for. This is effectively what you've been training for. What were you thinking going into that match?
You know, I remember that day. I woke up not feeling like it was a regular day. I wasn't more intense. I wasn't like really nervous. I didn't understand really the situation. I just knew I was playing pretty well, and I'm in the finals. And if you win, you get a wild card. And I'm a pretty cocky junior. I'm already like top 10 in the world ITF, you know, top in the nation. I'm doing some futures, got some ATP points, like playing. So, you know, I'm coming in thinking like, you know, I'm going to win. It's going to be good. And I remember having breakfast with the people I was staying with, the Carters, remember them. Shout out to the Carters in Kalamazoo.
Yes,
Great
sir.
people.
Yes, sir.
The dad, he played football at Notre Dame. I'm eating by myself. And he comes down, and he's always joking guy, always saying something, never actually serious. And he sits down, and he starts talking to me. I think he can sense that I'm just like, yeah, I'm going to go out and play. We'll see what happens. And he told me a great story. He said, my freshman year at Notre Dame, I was running back, and we went to the national championship. And before the game, I thought it was just another game. You know, like, we're so good. This is Notre Dame. He goes, and we lost. And I never went back to the national championship ever again. Like, in my years of college, like, I really took it for granted, you know, the position we were in, because this Notre Dame will always win. And he told me that. He was just like, don't take it for granted today. When he told me that, that fired me up. I was like, oh, I'm not losing today. Like, I'm here, you know, like, it's time to do it here. And so I remember having a good warm up with Torrey on the back courts. And, you know, Torrey never really warmed me up, but ain't nobody else in the tournament. So, you know, me and Torrey, we had a great warm up. I felt good. You know, we always had our routines. I remember coming out in the match. I remember Torrey remembers this too. I hit this backhand angle early in the match, and that kind of settled me down. And I was like, "Oh, if I'm hitting this, I'm feeling this today." And I just took off.
Let me add a little context.
Yeah, I would love to get your perspective on kind of that same period there. Yeah.
Finals at Kalamazoo, the courts are, you know, the numbers go better than me. There's 3 courts that are in the stadium situation. There's 2 more courts on the other side of the bleachers, and there's 4 courts in the back, Sco? Is it
6, maybe 6.
4?
6 in the back, I think.
6 in the back. I thought it was 5 and 4. Let's say it's 6 in the back, 5 in the front. So there's 3 and 2. Is my memory correct on that?
Yep,
one?
3 and 2 in the front. Yep.
So there's bleachers on the side, the wall, the tower. If you're looking at the courts and you're in the main stands, the tower's to your left. 3 courts, the wall. 3 on the end of the 3rd court. There's bleachers going this way, and there's, you know, not really bleachers on the other 2. There's mainly focused on those 3 courts. So Sco's on the middle court, court 2. Court 1 and court 2, the nets are down, and the linesmen are in the alleys of court 1 and court 3. Am I drawing the picture up for you, Alvin? Sco's backhand angle, okay, almost hits the leg of the ref, of the linesman on the service sideline on court 1. He's away from me. He hits this backhand angle, Alvin. I've always worked on Sco's angles and other shots to just make sure he had all the shots, right? Brian had a phenomenal angle, Haley, and I was like, man, you want an angle? You gotta have an angle like Haley. Haley had a sick angle. He would just roll that thing off you. It was just ridiculous. Sko hits this angle, Alvin. Scott's 6'3", give or take, rangy, strong, fast. Scott couldn't get the angle back because he would have ran into the official. Now he's in court 1 on the other side, has to go through the linesman and the chair to get this ball back, and he's almost kind of looking like, that's got to be interference, for this guy in my way. But the ball was legitimately about to be in the service box of court 1. Think about what I'm saying now.
Heavy.
Dude.
Heavy.
It was, to this day, one of the nastiest backhand angles I've seen. And he held it so long, you just knew he was going to go to the line. And so when he whipped this angle, I was like your boy LeBron James in the commercial. Oh Lord. I was like, oh, Lord.
So
that
okay.
backhand angle, I was like, oh snap.
So it's early.
He's about to get puff shoes. I mean, it was one of those angles that I was like, whoa. He's playing good today, and that anyway. I wanted to get some context to that because it wasn't just an angle; it was a shot that the crowd was like,
and that'll do something to you. Like you hit one of those early, and it's like, oh, it's like you mentioned, Scott. It's like it's game on, right? Like It's like I'm putting on a show today. But this is not a normal match, right? Up until this very point, you have played nothing but best out of 3-set matches, right?
Yep, never played 3
This
out of 5.
is the only junior match that is 3 out of 5, right? I guess it's because you are playing for a chance to go to the U.S. Open, so they just crank it up for you a little bit. How did that change? Did that have any impact on the way that you approached the match and how you worked your way through it?
Not really. Torrey just worked me out to death, as you know, Alvin, on the practice court. So going 5 sets was nothing. Like, if I can't go 5 sets, then I'm not trying hard in practice, basically. So going 5 sets was like for me, it was always the longer, the better. So I didn't feel like, I gotta always remember I'm playing against another junior my age too, who has not gone 3 out of 5 as well. So it's not like, I have an advantage. Someone has an advantage here.
right.
Torrey can talk about this too. As a kid like that, I was really spacey. Like, I really didn't understand what was really going on, which was great, actually.
What do you mean?
Like, I didn't understand, I had no idea until I won it. I was the first African-American to win Kalamazoo. I had no idea until I won it. No idea. No clue.
Right.
I didn't know. I was just going out here and competing and just like, you know what? I remember going to my first Kalamazoo with Torrey, getting to the quarters unseeded. My second one, losing to Vahid in the semis in the third and feeling heartbroken. My first year 18s playing terrible and didn't play well at all.
That was a tough ride.
It was. That's
Keen
what
Peter in the main.
Chopped me up.
Man, talk about didn't Keen play it at Washington?
Played at Oregon. He played at Boise. He's from Oregon, but he played at Boise.
That's what it was. I thought he was from Oregon, Washington too. Yeah.
Right.
Alvin, I'm going to add a little context.
Please
here
do.
Well, because this is, again, you kind of bringing some things back. You're bringing some memories loose. Sko was probably the most conditioned player I had as well. We would do an hour to 2 hours of a private in the morning, pretty much every morning. And then we would start drills. So drills were really, at that time, a chance for Sko to do in live ball what we had just worked on for an hour and a half. You know what I'm saying, Sko?
Mm-hmm.
Then we had lunch. Shout out to Rocco Vazzari, and you had the condition with Rocco most days. And then he came back out and did the second session. So I never felt like conditioning, which I was a conditioning coach. So I was never, Sko was always well conditioned. That was never an issue. He would do 2 or 3 sets in the morning. He would do another 3 sets in the afternoon. It was just, sets weren't a problem. If anything, I felt that was to his point, that was more of a strength. The longer the match went, the better. But this match here, to me, as far as Kalamazoo was concerned, it wasn't so much Sko. You can test the Sko. Kalamazoo could be colder, right? In some mornings, it could be hot. I mean, it was always a little different. What really, to me, and this is something that I don't think a lot of players understand. Sko, you touched us about the locker room, about the U.S. Open. But think about the first year you played Kalamazoo. That was also a locker room. That was also a, who's this kid? Who's this Jenkins kid? right? So that to me is the next, I'm going to say, level to reach. The best year Sko had was the year he took third and didn't win Kalamazoo. Sko got a wild card into the quali that year. It's the second year 16s. He gets a wild card in the quali, not into the main. What was your boy's name? Helgeson, Travis. Didn't Travis win it?
He beat Vahid in the final.
Beat
He
Vahid.
did.
And all truth be told, and Vahid may even say that, my boy Vabrizi, Vahid would even say, Sko was a little better than me. I just beat him that day. But Sko got off to a little bit of a tough start that match and ended up losing the breaker in the second. Vahid lost to Travis, big lefty, ended up playing at Georgia and Texas, didn't he? I'm trying to remember. Sko. I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
Good player. Sko gets the better end of the deal, Alvin, because he got 3 matches in the qualies of the U.S. Open Junior.
Right. Okay. So is that what happens? Like if you finish third or something like that, you end up.
It could, but I mean, I remember Torrey at that time. I didn't have a lot of ITF points. I did not have a lot of ITF. So like,
right.
I remember before it was like, I mean, U.S. Open playing juniors, all that was a big thing. And I remember Torrey was like, "You're gonna have to win it." You know, like
right.
you're gonna have to win it to get something. Yeah, you're gonna have to win it. You know, and so
and I think they gave him some love. Shout out to the USTA for giving him some love. But again, it was qualies, and they almost kind of gave it to him like USTA does, a little bit left-handed. Like, hey, we'll get you in the qualies. We'll see what happens. Right? Like they're doing you a favor, and it was a favor. Alvin and Sko, you can appreciate this. He played 3 kids that were not quite, I think, 64, 60 or so? What's the cutoff? Sko, 56, something like that on the cutoff for ITF?
I mean, it's just high. It's high.
It's high, right?
Yeah.
Because you got wild cards to get in, plus you got, the qualities, right? So let's say it's 56. I think I'm pretty close to the number of 64 draw. So you're talking about the top 50 kids in the world getting in. And at this point, it's late in the year, so it's only the top 50. It's not early. It's not like an ITF. Your number rolls off in January. It's not like a rolling calendar. If you were decent in January, okay. But you played all year. Gail Monfils, for example, won the Junior Australian. He won Junior French. He won Junior Wemby. So just to kind of give people some historical context, Kevin Anderson, who went on to be top 10, by the way, never made a Junior Slam in those years because his ranking wasn't quite high enough. So just kind of give people some context of where this thing goes. Sko beats 3 players, and in my opinion was the best thing ever happened to him because he got 3 matches. He goes into the main draw, Alvin, and he wins 4 more. Loses in the quarters to Baghdadis, Marcos Baghdadis. Shout out to Marcos if you're watching this. Alvin, every one of the other players that got wild cards in the main lost first round.
Right. It's a tricky proposition.
It's a tricky proposition, and none of them had great experience either. They're all walking around, praying like peacocks, but didn't have matches. We'll talk about this later as the conversation goes there. You heard it right here. The wild card into the qualies was probably a better serve situation, I still feel, even for a Kalamazoo champ, and give them several of them. Not the wild card necessarily into the main, which is great. Nice little check, nice little experience. But since Aaron Krickstein, many haven't gone deep with that wild card. And how could you playing against top 50 in the world men?
Right. Well, let's not dance too far down.
I won't get there. Fair enough. But I wanted to mention quality-wise in the junior even, I don't think a lot of them had that level of experience. And so to me, I just want to put that precursor out there. That was really what set Sko up on the stage for the next couple of years, because going into 18's the second year, Sko reached top 4 that year in ITF. A handful of good results, semis of Wimbledon, quarters of Australia, semis of doubles in Australia with Novak. And truth be told, and Novak, if you're watching this, you can appreciate this. Novak was not the Novak that we all know now. The brother serve was not there, and his form was suspect. So, and his volleys were, just saying. So I say that to say Novak improved a ton in the next 2 or 3 years, and clearly he's best of all time now. But I say it to say it wasn't like he was carrying Sko. It was a little more the other way around. Sko had a great year that year. With every tournament, he got better. And that to me is really why he walked into Kalamazoo with a little bit because more of the favorite. It's because how well he played all year, and Kalamazoo just kind of tied the bow around it.
So Sco, as you're moving through that match, like, so, for those, you can go back and check it, 7-5, 6-1, 6-3. Pretty,
Yeah, sound about right. Yeah,
pretty straightforward, right? That's a pretty straightforward match. So you finish that match, right? You're the Kalamazoo champ. At what point does the preparation for, and I don't remember, you tell me, what's the distance between finals finish and then the U.S. Open? Because I really want to dig into that time period right there.
That's a great question. So at that time, right before I won Kalamazoo, a few months before I signed pro contract with Octagon to go on pro. And as soon as I won Kalamazoo, it was, you're the first African American. I get back home, a lot of media. I'm on the radio. I'm on TV. I have some responsibilities to do. But I do remember like wanting to practice and just like, man, I'm just playing great and just wanting to play. But there were some responsibilities. The business side is starting to kick in now of the tennis that I not have any experience with. I remember the day I found out that I was playing number 2 seed defending champ Andy Roddick first round. I was at Ride Club of the South now, Lifetime, finishing in practice with Torrey, and Torrey told me. And it was kind of like, are you serious? Are you joking? Like,
wait, so you're playing Andy first round, right? He is the defending champ. He wins his first and only Grand Slam at the U.S. Open 2003, year prior. So that match you guys played, Monday or Tuesday of the event, something like that. One of the first 2 days. The draw comes out the Thursday prior, so you're still at home. Like you guys have been training. You haven't gone to New York yet, and you're at RCS, and that's when you find out you're playing Andy. Okay, so what change? Does anything change at that point?
I mean, I'm like, oh wow, this is TV. Oh man,
night match against the defending champ,
and Andy has been great to me, especially as a pro. This was my beginning of meeting him.
Right, I was going to ask, like, when did you know him at that point?
I didn't know him at all.
Okay.
I had been to a USTA camp when Davis Cup played. USA played Sweden and Delray, and a lot of my age group, we went to a camp there and we trained and watched. But Andy wasn't talking to us. He's professional, like he was, looking around, but he wasn't talking to us. So I never met Andy. Really. I maybe knew him a little bit. He maybe knew of me, but I didn't really know Andy at that time. And then we ended up being pretty great after.
Okay. So you find out you're playing Andy. What do those next 2 days look like before you guys head out to New York? Like, does that change practice any, or is it still like, okay, same thing? Just we know
it didn't
the
really,
person.
It didn't really change practice. It was the same thing. I just do remember at a Grand Slam like that, like the practices like Torrey would set me up with. I was like, I remember Sarge Sarkeesian practicing with him one day. Then the next person, like an hour later, and Torrey was like, it was new for both of us. Like, I think Torrey understood, hey, if I want to get practice courts and I want to get some, I got to sit at this desk, and I got to wait, or I got to find some people who everyone's looking, and so Torrey did really great at I remember just playing sets with everybody. Non-stop.
Maybe a few too many. But I remember one day Scott was like, but I didn't get a chance to finish this set here. Hey, we got another set over here. Almagro's over here. 11 o'clock. We got to go.
Yeah. I mean, and then,
Lee, and I was like, hey, sorry, we got to go. We got Almagro on court 5. We got to go.
And let's say I wasn't playing good in that set, or Torrey saw something we can work on. He'd be like, go outside. We're going outside. We're going to finish the practice later. So it was always like, hey, we got stuff to work on. We got stuff to do, and play. And so I was 17 years old and I didn't know what the hell was going on at all. I was just like, dude, of course it's my dream to play US Open and I'm here. Wow, this stadium is humongous. I'm going to play on this. I'm in the big boy locker room before I was in the juniors, in the little boy locker room. And going through that, I'm in the big boy locker room now.
So what are the differences between the previous year you played in the Junior US Open, qualified in, like Torrey talked about, and then now you're playing in the seniors main draw? Like, what are kind of the stark differences, even though you're at the same place?
A lot of it in your mind as a junior, you're like, and this is the false reality of junior slams is, I put enough of them. I'm like, I'm going to be here all the time. I'm playing junior slams. I'm going far in them, and I'm going to be a pro doing the same thing. So it was like, hey, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I didn't realize, I hadn't played enough futures yet. I barely played challengers at that time, and it was not like it is today. It was far less tournaments than it is today, especially on the challenger side in the U.S. So it was always a blur. I just followed Torrey. Whatever Torrey told me, followed his lead. I mean, since I was 14, Torrey put me in the right direction with my tennis in my life. So I just followed that. Remember getting some good practices. And we don't know what to expect, coming out on the court. I do remember I never saw Andy until right before I played him in the locker room. I do remember that. Never saw him on practice court, never saw him in the dining, barely in the locker room. It was like right before I'm about to play him.
Interesting. And like the point about the challengers, like not, there weren't as many then as there are now, kind of comparing your situation to this year's Kalamazoo winner, Darren Blanche, right? He just, we're recording this on, what was today, Wednesday. He won the event a couple of days ago, and he has now earned the wild card to play in the U.S. Open. Today, he's playing a challenger in Sumter, right? Like in between these two monumental events, he's getting
pro experience.
I mean, yes. he's been a pro for, a couple of years at this point, but still, like he treated Kalamazoo as like, that's just another tournament on my schedule. Yeah, it's a warm up. Let me go get this wild card so I can keep on with my year. But that's really interesting. But you didn't see Andy at all. Like he's just where the hell was Andy? Andy, where were you?
Oh, he's probably just doing his thing, this is defending champ Andy Roddick here, and he's playing some kid.
He was around. I watched him a few matches. He had a lot of practice when Sko was out, either eating or seeing the physio. I was watching him. He was out there. It's funny about that year you mentioned it. I'll just do a quick little tangent here. Andy was playing so well. People don't understand this. Andy, the very next round after Sko, Alvin, beat Nadal like a drum. Right. It was a beat down.
6-0 first set.
Yeah.
I want to say Sko lost 0-2 and 2, and I think he beat Nadal 0-3 and 3. I mean, it was like, I was like, dude, all thoughts considered. You know what I mean? You didn't do that bad compared to Rafa. You know what I mean? I mean, he played. In fact,
he finished one in the world that year, right? Like he ended up being world number one that year.
That year, he actually peaked too early. I remember watching the match because I've known Andy going back a little ways. Brian Vahaley, and who I also used to work with back in the junior was real good friends with Andy. And they played some doubles together when they were first coming out. This is back when, Andy obviously went pro and Brian obviously was coming out of Virginia. And obviously Sko members, you guys both remember Brian. So when Brian brought Andy to do a couple of his foundation events, I met Andy and Mandy Moore and the whole nine. And so I got to meet Andy a little bit then. So I knew Andy, I knew John. So I was watching Andy practice. And dude, I'm telling you, Andy was on fire. I mean, Andy was literally like, I was like, wow, this guy's playing unbelievable. I thought he was going to win the tournament like without dropping a set. He peaked almost so early. He played so well the first week. He had one bad match, and it was against Gilles Muller. You remember Gilles Sko? Savvy lefty, big serve.
That was actually the next year. It was Thomas Johansson, the big, tall Swedish guy. He lost to.
Hansen beat him that year?
In the quarters. I remember being in Times Square and watching, and it was like, oh my God, Roddick's about to lose this match.
You're right. Might have been the next year. But I said to say he was beating everybody down that first week. And it must have been late. It must have been early in the second week when he lost, because it was like it was almost like, oh wow, he beat him. Like it was a weird match because it was the first day he had kind of a dip in his performance. It was almost like he peaked too early. Anyway, I said to say that's how well he was playing coming in, Alvin. I want to say Andy's first serve in that match, Sko, you remember it, was like a $155, $153. It was something serious.
Oh, I wrote it down. He I mean, we're getting a little far ahead of ourselves, but he went 148, 150, 152 in the opening service game. And the crowd was like...
So that's what everybody remembers, and I always get shit from, oh, you were ducking the serve. And in reality, I didn't know how fast that serve was. I just knew it went by me fast. But you got to remember how I do things. Like I'm a spaced out, stupid kid there. Me and Torrey always worked on, we take the baseline on returns. I had great returns. So my dumb ass is standing on the baseline against Andy Roddick. And he probably, most likely, took offense to it.
I took that personally.
Right.
Yeah. And so I remember it going by me and then walking over to the next side, and the crowd's like, ooh. And I was like, looked up for the gun. And I'm like, oh, wow. That was big.
Yeah. So let's go back just a little bit before we get to the match. I assume at some point, maybe a day before the match, when the order of play comes out, you figure out you're playing on Ashe. Did you get a chance to play on Ashe, like practice on Ashe, before you got to play the match against Andy?
I don't remember. I probably did. I for sure had to. I just don't remember. I don't remember, actually.
That year, I don't think we did.
Okay.
We did. The next year, I made a point to it because I actually caused a bit of a ruckus with the lady at the desk because, little known fact, maybe it's changed, but back then, the desk, and I hung out at the desk religiously, Alvin. I was there early, late. I ate my lunch right next to it. Anybody looking, I was stalking them, Alvin. I was like, I'm gonna get some matches for my boy. That wasn't the desk for Ashe. There was an office down the way that controlled all of Ashe's practice courts. That's why we never saw him, because he was never at that desk. There was some lady down the way in what's the old tournament director? Michael Early, was it Ely or Early? I forgot.
I think so. Ely, maybe.
Ely.
Yeah, maybe.
He was in his office, the tournament director's office. His secretary ran the practice course for Ashe. You had to have a sticker, you had to have a credential, and she did all of the top 8 seeds practices. They got Ashe whenever they wanted because they were going to be playing on Ashe.
Right.
So before Nadal's match, I went in and pitched a fit, and I said, I can't believe we didn't have this last time. This is the first time I'm hearing about it. I said, it's like you're stacking the deck for the player who's played there before. I said, why can't the kid who's playing in that tournament, on Ashe, also get time? And
it wasn't in the player packet. It wasn't in the player packet.
Bro,
you didn't go to the player meeting, the orientation meeting.
Buddy, you didn't know. Hey, it's those who know, right? And I went in there and pitched an absolute fit. And the lady said, well, keep your voice down. Keep your voice down. Well, I'll get him in. I'm like, oh, you darn right you're going to get him in. Because I realized at that point in time, I had been hoodwinked, you know what I mean? And I'm like, really? He can't even play on the same court he's about to play on, later on? I'm like, okay, what's that about?
Well, we'll get to that one. We'll get to that one because I think we got some more fun stuff.
No, he did not play on Ashe before that match. He played several times the next year. I made sure of it, but at that time, no, he didn't. And on top of not seeing Andy, on top of everything else, dude, and that's all. And again, I hope everybody who wins it after this understands this and works through all the nooks and crannies. You know what I'm saying? But
you got to go to the right desk,
buddy. And you better know who to talk to.
Well, Darwin, if you're paying attention here, make sure if you draw an Ashe assignment, you better go talk to somebody. Talk to the right somebody.
You better ask somebody.
So Scott, you said okay, now you're in the locker room. We're night of the match, right? I don't remember. Were there 2 matches that night, or were you the?
There was a women's match before. I can't remember who the match was. Yeah.
Fair enough. So you're in the locker room. Now you see Andy. I'm assuming you see Andy now. What are you feeling as we're getting ready to walk onto the court?
I'm feeling pretty scared.
Okay. It's starting to set in.
Andy's looking pretty intimidating. Brad Gilbert's looking pretty intimidating. The locker room is empty. The women's match before, I remember there was a little rain, so it's a little delay. It's just making my nerves go a little bit more. I don't know that before you go on court, the lesser player or the less seated player goes before and talks to the camera. Then you got to wait on that player to come. You walk together, or you might go first. It just depends. And they kind of tell you what's going to happen here. And then it's just like, all right, go. And there's just nothing that will get you ready for when you step out on that court for the first time at night and you feel that energy. You're like, oh my God.
Because it's not just a tennis match anymore. You're a part of a television production. You are a character in a thing that people are watching all over the world. You're not just playing a tennis match. What's that like? You walk on the court. You look. Are you? So I see players take it a couple different ways. Like some walk out and they look around. They take it all in. or some just like eyes on the chair. I'm walking straight to my bench. I'm not looking up there.
I was kind of like that. I was like, I'm walking straight to the bench. I'm pretty nervous, like, oh my gosh, this is big. Like, I'm just thinking of all the things that make you nervous, and playing and competing in the tennis match is like very far away from me, actually, like for how scared I am. I've never been in a situation before, and I'm 17 years old, and I'm like, can I do this? You just ask yourself, you're just asking a ton of questions, and you're not ready. Like at the time, I was not ready, not even close to it. And Andy beat me down like he should have beat me down. But I learned so much from that experience, and I learned so much for what happened after in that experience as well. That no one could really teach me or talk to me about.
Such as let's just go with it. What did you take away from that at that time?
After that, I went to Andy Roddick's house for a week. I did Davis Cup hitting partner in Charlotte, South Carolina, and Patrick Macaron was like, "Hey, Andy lost early. Can you come down to Austin and train with him? The Bryan brothers going to come. Marty Fish will come later, but can you come?" I was like, "Of course I can come." Like, yeah. So I go down there. I meet Andy. Andy was just opening his house up to me. I was the first one to get there. Went on his boat right away. Andy was so good to me. Opened up his house. If I could call him, he always call back. The practices were great. He treated me like a little shitty 17-year-old, which I really appreciated. I remember being at practice, and me and Andy are playing two up, two back against the Bryan brothers. I'm like, wow, and they're beating us down, and Andy's blaming me. I remember, and I'm just like, I don't think I'm playing that bad, man. Like they just don't miss volleys.
I mean, those three end up in the Hall of Fame. I'm just saying, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
So okay. So
and then I went and practiced with Davis Cup right in Charleston, and it was still tough. And being around Andy, if anybody can tell you, especially a junior coming up, when Andy was the man, he was tough on juniors, man. Oh my goodness, practice what can be stressful if you're not bringing it, because he saw it as, I'm trying to be great, and you're over there messing me up. Right. So I felt a lot of anxiety with him, but it made me like, hey, I can't be missing balls here. You had to be on it with him. So right after that, I got to be around him for a good 2 weeks. Spent my 18th birthday with him,
nice.
In Austin. I got to be around him a lot. And what the biggest thing was, like, Brian Vahaley helped me so much. But as I was coming up older, 17, 18, 19, he was traveling more. So I got to be more with Brian Vahaley around 15, 16. And then when I started traveling, he started, our schedules just went away apart. So I didn't really know what it was like to be a professional. And being around him really showed me, it was like, do you go hard in everything you do? That's the biggest thing I know about Andy Roddick is you go hard in everything you do, no matter what.
And that piece about like knowing how to be a professional, I think I heard this or read this somewhere. Fellow Atlantan Chris Eubanks, he said once he got on tour, he felt so much more. He was comfortable right away because he traveled around as Donald Young's hitting partner when Donald was on the tour. So like there's something to being in a place and seeing it not for the first time, right? When you have to when the chips are down. I want to go back a little bit. In the locker room, right? Before you go to play Andy, right? Now you're going on. TH, what are you thinking? I'm assuming you're scurrying over to the player box, and now you're about to settle in for this somewhat of a culminating, if not a culminating, a very salient moment in your coaching career.
Sure.
What are you thinking at that point?
Did I prepare him enough? Did I do everything I could have done to get him ready for this moment? I know the moment may be big. I know the moment may be a little large. And of all the people that plays, playing freaking Andy Roddick, right? Not a qualifier, not a wild card, the defending champ, So I'm like, thanks a lot, USTA. You know what I mean? That was on one side of me, right?
There are 8 wild cards. Right? There are 64 places you could land.
And thank you. And
or
he landed
some places you can land. Yeah,
don't think the conspiracy theorist side of me wasn't thinking there was a little cooking of the books on that one. But I also knew Andy, right? And so immediately after the match, I went up straight to Andy, like, Andy, hey, what does he need? And Andy laid it to me. I'm like, and I took it personal. And then he says to me,
well, no, what he laid into you. What do you mean? What do you mean?
he told me Sko played the same set 3 times. He said he didn't change. He didn't adjust. He said, I adjusted on his serve 6 times in the first game. He said he didn't adjust on my serve until midway into the third. And I was like, fair point. I saw it. I understood it. And then a part of me who never won Kalamazoo, who never played on Arthur Ashe, says, Andy, I'm 30 years old, and I'm just now appreciating making adjustments like that in a match like that at 17, 18. I don't know if I'm thinking like that. I'm thinking trying not to get embarrassed. And how do I look and feel out here? He says to me, Torrey, fair. He says, but he's in the pros now. And he's got to learn how to make adjustments. And he's got to make them fast. He ran Sko down so bad to me that I think he felt bad. And he says, you know what? I'm gonna take care. I'm gonna hit with him. And then I think hence why he ended up taking you on Sko, because again, I knew him from years before. But he says to me, but I tell you what, after he ran him down for 10 minutes, he says, but there's a lot there. He says, I like this kid. He says he never backed down. He said he never looked scared. He says, I know he was nervous. He says, but he never looked scared. He says, and even when he won his first game, he didn't celebrate too much. And he kept trying the whole time. He says, there's something to be said for that. He says, and Sko, you can appreciate this. And I was playing well. He says, I played well tonight. He says, I was on fire from the moment I hit that first serve. He wasn't ready for that. And I'm like, yeah, of course not.
No one was.
No one was. But he also, and this is what I love, Andy and John, a couple years later, Sko, you remember this, we had a practice at Grand Central, at that indoor court underneath Grand Central Station. John came and found me and went and said, hey, we got to
John Roddick.
Central. John Roddick, his older brother,
John Roddick,
who was his coach / manager / whatever, and says, Andy's got a court at Grand Central. Can you guys be there? 9:00 tonight. I'm like, done. Wherever. And I'm like, wait, there's a court under Grand Central?
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
That court is still there, lightning fast.
Lightning fast. And sure enough, we went there. Sko played him. And I will say this, and Andy can feel free to come on here, come on the podcast and defend himself. Sko played him a couple years later and absolutely beat the brakes off of Andy for about 45 minutes. And in my opinion, and another time he jumped on Sko, he jumped on Sko for beating him and not doing more in the main draw at the Open. So that was a whole nother talk show. But I say that to tell you, Alvin, the same Andy was a fan. He was as much of an older brother and a mentor. And I will say this, and I want to make sure I get this on wax. Andy Roddick was one of the best mentors for the juniors in that year and that span of time. And he likely didn't have an Andy for him, but he was that way for the juniors, and especially Sko, that I knew at that time. And I can't thank the brother enough for what he did for Sko, because he brought you down a couple of times, Sko, if I'm not mistaken, and just really took him in, took him under his wing. And yeah, he gave him a hard time. He's supposed to. He's Andy Roddick and he's Grand Slam champ and all that. But he made sure that he backed it up with, come to my spot next week. We're going to train for a week. He didn't just talk about it. He, as my uncle would always say, don't talk about it, be about it. He was about it. He brought Sko into the fold, and he allowed him to train with him, showed him what it was like to be pro material. And to me, that's what the U.S. is missing, is the level of that kind of interaction with those kind of top players. And I will forever, I know, Sko, you may feel the same, feel indebted to him to taking it on his own. That wasn't through USGA setup. That was Andy. That was Andy doing that. And I say that to say Sko improved a lot over that whole time frame because of that.
I'll even triple down on that. Just 10 years later, I was working at Austin Tennis Academy, and Andy was retired but living still in Austin. He would often come out to our academy work with Ryan Harrison because Ryan was in town and working with Trace Davis a good bit. But he would also hit with our juniors, Grayson Brodus and Josh Hager and those guys. And Andy would be out there. He's working in with them. He's sitting on the bench with them afterwards. And he's retired at this point, but still giving his time. Let's go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I got a good Andy story about a Davis Cup and what Torrey, piggybacking what Torrey said about. So after I played him at US Open, I'm at his house. I'm training hard with him for 10 days. So when we go to Charleston, I'm playing him in a practice the day before he's gonna have to play. And this is probably some of the best tennis I've played. I take the first set. I hope Andy remembers this because I remember this.
I'm gonna send this over to his producer Mike and see if he can get it over to Andy.
So now I remember a couple weeks before, Torrey and I were talking about I was just going too big on first serve. I'm trying to get aces. He's like, you got to mix in some kicks, throw some people off. You got to change it up. So when I'm beating Andy, and Dean Goldfine is there. I don't know if Jay Berger's there, but I remember Dean being there. Patrick McEnroe was there. Andy's breaking rackets. He's pissed. He's breaking rackets, and I have to just stay focused. And a lot of it's kind of show he's pissed, but a lot of it's kind of I'm pissed. So we're in this long game. I'm having a chance to go up in the second set. I'm serving this long game. So I remember I was like, God, I'm not getting any free points on the serve. This is a big game. So we're on the deuce side. So I'm like, all right, I'm throwing a kick here. This might be a good time. And I start throwing a kick, and he grabs the ball. He doesn't even play. He stops it. And he goes, what? And he yells out, what the fuck are you doing? You got a monster serve and you're going to hit a kick serve on the first point in a deuce game? He stopped. And I was like, huh? What? And he scared me too, and it threw me off. And of course, I just played terrible the rest. And then I remember asking him, he asked me, he goes, why did you do that? After the set was over. And I was like, my coach trying to work on, I thought I gave you the same look all the time. I just want to give you a different look. He goes, yeah, maybe you can kick it on the ad side, off the court, but not on the deuce side. When you got to serve, you can get a free point off of. And he didn't have to say any of that. He didn't have to do any of that. I remember that. I told the junior players I worked with that story. He was like, go for your serve. Right. You have an opportunity to get a free point. Why would you not do it? And that was just so
and he was real and that candid, right? But at the same time, he's doing it to help you. He wasn't doing it just to talk smack. And, so you guys played with them. I remember you and Vahid and who else? It may have been Scotty. And we're down there. He had he had twisted his ankle. He was down in Key Biscayne when it was still down, when NASDAQ was still over there at Key Biscayne. And he was getting beat down, Alvin, by the juniors. Hobbling on his leg, not quite 100%, was coming back. It was a week-long camp. Monday, taking L's by every one of them. Playing shooter, on-the-run games, just kind of, all of them were kind of designed by Andy to kind of get his footing. Tuesday, starts to show some signs. Still going toe-to-toe. I think Sko may have taken him on, maybe Vahid, taken him on a couple of long rallies. Wednesday, he's starting to heal up pretty good, Alvin. And all of a sudden, the serve is starting. You're starting to hear it about 4 courts away. Boom! Oh, God, Andy must be feeling better today. Thursday, they weren't getting games. And by Friday, and he was talking smack to him, even on Monday when he was losing. It's good. Get all your points in today. I'm not 100%, my first day in 2 weeks. And he was talking smack. You know what I'm talking about, Sko? And Alvin, by Friday, it was a Bill Walton clinic. It was an absolute clinic. And I said, I'm laughing is this the same guy? This ain't the same guy. And he just showed the levels that he had in this game, and he started to feel. And then he thanked them all, whatever. Hey, guys, thanks. Good week of practice. And basically put them back in their place. But I say all that to tell you, again, I've known Andy for a long time, and John, and from years before Sko made that match. And I have to tell you, he's been the same. I listen to him on his podcast now, and he's just as quick-witted as he is now, and how fast he is with his wit. He is just as fast with his adjustments and with what he sees in the game. He's actually a very, very smart tennis player. A lot of people kind of thought of him as extremely savvy, extremely cerebral. And, I say that to say, I know I don't have to convince you to, I'm preaching to the converted, but I say that to tell you he was and just as nice and genuine as a human being. He's going to tell you how to caveat the cabbage. Now that's going to be Andy for sure. But at the same time, just a genuine person as well. And so I can't say enough about him to his credit and what he did to, not only with Brian, but also with Sko as well. And just was, just good people.
So let's go. So just want to kind of finish up with that actual match, that experience. You said you were nervous, you were scared. At what point? And this is interesting because I watched the match in real time while I was in college. That was the first semester of my senior year of college, and all my tennis teammates were there. Is the whole thing, but I haven't seen that match since then. I watched it a couple of days ago just to get ready for this podcast. At what point did you feel like you ever settled in to that match and started to play the tennis that you felt like you were capable of playing?
I never settled in.
Okay.
Never settled in. I didn't feel like I was playing tennis out there. The court seemed so tiny. The stadium seemed so big. That's the first time someone told me, "Hey, changeover. The umpire said, I'm gonna let you guys go up when I say go up for TV. So you get longer." Everything was different. Everything was different, and it was just so new and very uncomfortable for me. And at the time, I thinking I'm just doing terrible. I don't know that I'm not doing as bad as I think. I just think I'm doing terrible.
Right.
And
this is your first ATP level match at this point, right? You played ITFs up until this point, but this is
I played futures
challengers,
gone far, but never. I've never played an ATP event to this time. Right. Never. Grand Slam, never.
Right.
That is wild. That is wild. Okay, so you get through that match, end up losing it. Was it 0-2-2, something like that? But you played the junior event though, right? That you stayed a couple days, played the junior event, and I want to kind of take a peek at the players who were in this junior event, right? Just to kind of let the listeners know, okay, after this, there was this other tournament.
I remember who I lost to. I remember losing to Andreas Beck on the grandstand.
Andreas Beck, and he went to did he go to the finals of that event? Did he final it? Or
I want to say Murray won it that year.
Murray won it. He beat Delpo. Murray beat Delpo in the first round. Okay, let's just Andy Murray, Grand Slam champion.
Right.
Future Grand Slam champion, Juan Martín del Potro in the very first round of that junior event. Query also made a run at that event. Future Grand Slam winner Marin Cilic was in that event. Monfils was in the event. Donald Young in the event. Future Grand Slam finalist Kevin Anderson did get a wild card into that event. Misha Zverev, top 30 player. Victor Troicki. Are we kidding?
Didn't Troicki beat Monfils? If I'm not mistaken,
I think he beat Monfils. Yeah,
he did. Troicki was tough. I played him in the semis of Eddie Herr.
Yeah,
he was a top 25 player. Yeah.
And Monfils was going for the junior sweep there, winning. He won Australia and French and Wimbledon up to that. And I remember back at camp, Torrey, so I'm like, this kid is I'm like, what's he like? What's he like? He's like, it's like Dwayne Wade played tennis. That's what it's like. And we're talking about 04 D Wade, right? So
Flash.
Exactly. Okay, so all right, so I think we've fully encapsulated this experience, kind of walking, from winning Kalamazoo all the way up to this Andy Roddick experience. And then even afterwards, I want to take a little bit of this is normally when we would take a break, but we're not going to take a break. We're just going to keep going. The very next year you come back, you're a year older. You've now did you get a wild card in the next year as well?
I got a wild card.
You got a wild card in, one of the 8 wild cards. You got this one. Now at this point you've been kind of on the circuit for a year. Mm-hmm. You've been grinding. You get a wild card in and you play George Bastel first round, right? Go 5 with Bastel. You fought off up 2 sets to love, fight that off, 7-6 in the 5th, big win. That's your first Grand Slam win, right? And then you're back on the same court against Rafael Nadal. Now, it's a much younger Rafael Nadal, but he had just won the French Open the year before. Is that correct? No, that year, 05.
He won it that year, yeah.
He won it that year. Okay, so now we've got this young kid that you've seen a few times before, French Open champ. you're back in the same place, but you're now a year older, you're wiser. What is that experience like now?
Definitely felt more confident going in. I had a pretty good year that year going to US Open. Like, I was confident going into the tournament. I remember Pilot Pin the week before. I lost to Tommy Robredo up 4-2 in the third, and he was 12 in the world. And my serve let me down. So I was pretty.
You beat your boy.
Jaakko Nieminen, first round.
Jarkko, yeah, at 4 in the third.
Yeah,
remember
first
that.
round.
Huge win for you. Yeah, Jarkko would go on to get to the semis of the U.S. Open the next year.
He did.
That same time, and Scoville beat him first round. So, go ahead.
So it was. I was a little bit more ready. I knew what to expect now. That was the biggest thing. I knew what to expect. Like, I remember going into the tournament with Torrey and we're going on with some serving stuff. I just had a hard time serving down the tee on the outside, with confidence with it at that moment.
Right.
And I remember Torrey telling me one thing. He goes, I was getting frustrated with it, like pissed. And he was like, dude, your serve out wide, everyone knows that's your serve. Just hit it. It's all about executing. Don't worry about it. And that kind of calmed me down. I was like, you know what? I don't have to go for anything big against these people. I can do it. So going in there, I knew about the TV. Nadal's in there running around, with Vaseline on his all over his body and his hair. Just doing his thing, intimidating you.
He was wearing. Oh my God,
yep.
No doubt.
But you know what? Andy intimidated me the year before. I was like, I'm not letting this person intimidate me. I don't give shit. I know what to expect now. I got to go out here and play. Now, the fear of Nadal was there. Everyone's watching him on clay, destroying top 10 players, not just people, top 10 players. Everyone's seen that forehand. Everyone's seen this guy doesn't get tired, so.
And Alvin, he's doing spin moves. He's doing spin moves. I mean, he's doing shake and bake in the locker room going to the bathroom. I mean, this dude is like,
he really is.
He changed shirts twice in the locker room, but he was lathering up in the locker room, moving around, changed off his shirt, ripped the other shirt out of the plastic, put a new one on. He was going again. I'm like,
he's doing all that.
I mean, he's doing all that. Clearly excess energy as I look back on it now, but also he was definitely trying to get in your head. You know what I mean? So, and they're about the same age. They weren't that far apart.
I was going to ask, like, you guys can't be that far apart.
We're born same year.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But up on this time, you hadn't seen him in juniors, right? Because by the time you're playing ITFs and junior Grand Slams, he was already on the tour, like age 16, whatnot.
And a pretty established professional at age 16, actually.
Right. Yeah.
So I was very nervous going out to the court, of course, but that nervous energy, I just took it in more. I was like, dude, I'm going to take in this New York energy, this New York crowd. I'm going to feed off it this time. I'm not going to let the moment be too big. And I remember being very nervous. And Torrey and I talked about this. There was a point in that first set. I go down to break early, just double faulting. Nadal comes in, and I go backhand lob passing shot. And I kind of just looked at Torrey with a fist pump. He looked at me back, and I was like, okay, now I can play tennis now.
Right.
This is it.
Very similar to the Kalamazoo experience.
Yes.
It's the backhand winner that breaks the shackles off and gets you loose.
Yeah. It was a lob winner.
That lob
came
pretty
down
good. With raindrops. That lob was so
It
sick.
Did. Because I shocked myself
off
with
his
it.
Ankles,
It's a good lob.
Off his ankles, like Nadal went forward, bang, and the lob went over him, came down 30 feet later, wow. And I was like, I was big. And he probably caught my reaction of how the shot was as much as I was trying to give him some confidence, because when you see a shot like that, Alvin, you can't help but just feel what just happened. You know what I mean? So no, he was playing some good ball, and this is after the 5 sets with Bastel. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like he didn't play enough. That match was 4.5 hours out. That was a 4.5 hour match. His first 5 sets. I mean, I was telling people, man, I'm tired watching. I mean, I can't imagine playing. You know what I mean? I'm like, man, didn't even go to the bathroom. I'm like, bro, what is going on? This is a long match. So he felt very comfortable. And that lob, I remember that lob made him feel like he kind of settled in a little bit. And those first 2 sets were nip tuck. I have to say that for sure.
I'll leave a link. I'll leave some links in the description when we get this up, because I watched the match this morning. Got my way through the entire Nadal match, and it was a lot of fun. Like, it was a lot of fun. I felt like, after the experience you had the year before, like, you could see the real Scoville Jenkins, and like, you were in it. You were in the match. You were in the match. So okay, so you got broken at some point early in that. I think maybe 2-all, something like that, maybe in the first set.
But then I held the rest of the way.
Right.
And he kind of held on. But then I realized, I was like, this guy's hitting everything short. Like, I can tee off on every forehand just about. This was a very clay court defensive Nadal. This was not the Nadal we came to see for years, just ripping. He was not like that yet.
Yeah, that was the cool thing about watching the match. It's like, 2005 Nadal is very different than the Nadal that we know now. 100%. It's like he is like, I felt like the vast majority of that match, like, you were on his ass. I was like, this looks like a approach shot pass game that, like, you had so many step up forehands. But anyways, continue. I'll let you go.
So that's what it was, step up forehands. And that's what Torrey and I talked about. He's like, dude, getting in a rally with this guy for consistent long term, it's not going to work. We all watched Roland Garros this year. Like, you get the forehand, you got to go after it. Like, you can't give this guy a second chance. So that's the first thing in my mind. I'm like, I get a forehand. So you don't know, when you go into the match, you don't know if the forehand's going to click. Like, you could hit the fence. Like, you don't know yet. It's like, I know I should be going big, but, like, do I have it? And so once the first couple ones came off big, I was like, oh, I got it. And then the New York crowd, the air, I brought it all in. Like, I was like, I can do this. Yep. Like, that was in my mind. I can do this. Like, I can do this. And then seeing him get a little nervous, seeing him make mistakes, it's like, I can do this.
You were wearing out his backhand return on the deuce side. I remember, like, over and over. It's like every time he served there, it was like step up forehand right after. And I was like, huh. I mean, I know how this match ends, but damn, this is fun. Like, on top of it.
One of the
tactical
things that I told him was, everybody was afraid of the forehand. And I told Sco, hit to the forehand. Take him out wide. He wants to get it inside out. His out wide forehand isn't as big as you think. Run it first. Go wide backhand, wide and glide, go big forehand, go out wide, and then go back behind him. Go back forehand again. Because he's actually more dangerous on the backhand side with the pass. And his forehand was big, but heavy, thin, but it wasn't as big. It wasn't as threatening, at least not then, later on. And I'm like, Sco, your forehand's bigger. And he was looking at me like, Sco was like, oh, this guy won French. I'm like, Sco, trust me. Go to the forehand. I go, your ball's heavier than most. Your ball's bigger than most. He ain't played a guy like you that has that kind of a kick. Guys go, I'm telling you. And the first times, Sco had a kick out wide. When I think it was one of the games you almost held at Love or at 15. You had a kick out wide on the deuce. You had a step up forehand. You went back wide. And Nadal did this little almost broke ankles kind of move and looked over at his box. And I remember looking at you like, there it is. And I think at that time, because how many matches is there, Alvin? You all three have coached. You tell a kid a good game plan. You're 70-30 that it'll work. In theory. But at the same time, you don't know what the guy's going to do. You know what I mean? You know it works in theory. But at the same time, if that guy would have gone over there and laced the forehand big up the line, everything you would have said now is garbage. I mean, you're not.
Let me tell you, if I've got a game plan for a 14 and under event at Hudlow, I'm pretty sure that's going to work if the kid can do it. This is a whole different scenario.
And I'm like, and I'm watching tape after tape. I'm watching, and it's not like YouTube ain't like it is now, bro. You can almost pull up points. Show me, points of Nadal on the forehand on the run return. Come on, this is YouTube was lagging. It was glitching out. I mean, I'm sitting there trying to find a good spot with Wi-Fi. You know what I mean? Just to get the direct coverage. I'm trying to watch point after point to see what happens. So anyway, I said to say I was as pleased that it was working as well as Sco, just so he could settle in and take heart to what I was saying. And at that point, help him understand, forget the strategy, forget me, that he had a shot here. And that was all you really want your kid to do. Sko made a point. Sko, and I'm going to tell you this right now. Sko, one of the best things about you was you weren't so literal. You were more literal than you were cerebral. But that helped you because you weren't so manic in the moment either. You weren't so overwhelmed. Your overwhelm was, wow, it's a big serve. It wasn't, oh my God, how do I look on TV back home? I must be embarrassed. God, I look like a fool out here. You were so dialed in. Your level of embarrassment was like, wow, the ball almost hit me. Glad I moved in time. You were more calm, the most calm cucumber I've ever seen. I'm in the box saying, man, I almost hit him in the face, but that was a big serve right there. And Skull was like, it's kind of big. And by the time you won your first game, you were almost like, yeah, I caught up to it finally. But it was more of and I'm like, dude, I don't know if I would have felt that way for 3 hours. You know what I mean? And I'm watching, I'm a coach, I'm 30 some years old. So one of the things that was so good about you was you were so calm as a person that you called it space. Yeah, maybe. But it wasn't like a space cadet you or ADHD out there. You were just more topical. And you always had this sense of looking at from the top down like, I know what to do. I remember a match you and Sachs played in the 3-4 doubles in the quarters or semis at Kazoo. And I remember Sachs, I could hear him from right behind you guys at Kazoo. Oh, what should I do, Sko? What should I do? Should I run on 4? And you were like, Sachs, calm down. Make the return. Let's go. And it was such a coach's moment where Sachs, and Sachs could overthink some things. Good player. Great, good player on his own right. But overwhelmed a time or two. And you were telling him, Sachs, calm down. Make the return. Let's go. And I say it to say you weren't that different in the U.S. Open. It's just the opponent got a lot better. So I wanted to kind of make that point to you. There's times when, you can look at yourself in one way as your coach of many years, as a player that watched you grow up and watched you grow into who you became. That was also one of your mutant abilities. You were just so calm and able to see it for what it was. If you weren't playing well, you knew you weren't playing well. If you're playing well, I'm playing pretty well. Without the extra to make it worse. You know what I mean? A lot of times, guys, Alvin, I know you and I appreciate this. There's moments when I'm playing well, I'm going to go for more on the forehead. Oh, I'm playing good today. And instead of, let me just stay right here. Maybe that's what I should do.
Right.
Stay right here. Oh, I'm playing bad. So you start playing worse, right? It's one of those things, well, I'm playing bad. But let me try this right here, and let me just stay right here. That's a gift.
Well,
and I want to say,
let's bring it back. Yeah, I just want to.
You don't always appreciate, Sko, about yourself because you were you. You had that level of calmness. Your low was never really that low, and your high got a lot higher because you were able to surf, so to speak, in the barrel a little better than most because you weren't too emotional. And that's that I always give you credit for that. You were just so calm in the moment, or at least you seem so to me.
So let's go throughout that match. Like you got down a break in the first set, but you're playing like once you got into it, you're into it, right? Like it's like I can do this. I think you said earlier. So as you're going through that match and you get into the second set, that second set's nip tuck. Are you still feeling as confident, or are you starting to now feel some of the physical effects of the match that you're in, but then also the 5-setter you played before?
I never felt tired ever. Even after that 5-set match, I remember going to bed against Bastel. And I was like, I'm going to feel it tomorrow. I woke up 100%. Like literally nothing was wrong on me. Nothing. Like nothing. I was shocked myself. So Nadal, dude, I was fine. And Alvin, you going with workouts with Torrey. Everything's easy after that. So I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I've never played a 5-setter match at the U.S. Open, so I'm going to take your word for it.
I didn't feel tired. What mostly I felt was like, okay, we're playing tennis now, and doesn't feel superhuman to me anymore. I feel like he's gonna miss, and I can take it to him. I just have to execute. That was the biggest thing. So like I could just calm down, and now I'm focused on executing my game plan against him because I see it's working over and over again.
Yeah.
And at that time, my volleys weren't good enough. My coming forward wasn't good enough, especially for someone like him. It just wasn't good enough at that time. But that was it. It was just like, And I was so uncomfortable coming forward that time. Oh my goodness. I remember warming up with Donald Young in the daytime before that match, and we're playing points, and I'm missing, and I'm getting pissed. I remember throwing the racket in practice, and Torrey stopped the practice and was like, let's just stop it here. And just talk to me like, calm down. It's fine. Like, let's just stop now. And I'm like, I remember I was like, no, we can't stop now. If I don't play better, I'm just going to go out here and get embarrassed again like last year. I remember thinking that because I was just nervous.
Right. Okay, so you're that day you're hitting with DY, also from Atlanta, also black. Oh, he's not from Atlanta, but I think he was probably in Atlanta at that time. You've got a lefty, right? That you're going into this match. So you at this point you're putting into practice what you expect to do later on that night. You're like, I'm going to be hitting a lot of stuff beforehand. I'm coming in first ball, trying to close off at the net,
and I'm trying to implement it in the practice with Donald. And I'm
very
missing,
different lefties, by the way.
and it's new. And
sure,
yes, yeah. And so I'm missing, and it's not working how I want to, and I'm nervous. I remember just being upset. I remember Torrey stopping it. It was like, let's just stop now. Like, you're fine. Go get something to eat. Just chill out.
Sure. For context, he had not ever lost to Donald Young. And I think in his mind, he was thinking, if I can't do this against Donald, who I've never lost to, how the heck am I going to do it against Nadal, who just won the French? And I could tell he was kind of getting to him a little bit. I was probably getting to him a little bit. I was leaning on him a little bit. Of course, I leaned on him all the time. And I realized at that time I needed to kind of calm it down. I bumped into Rick Macy during that tournament. He was talking to me about getting my player prepared mentally and making sure they're in the right mindset. And he, for whatever reason, Alvin and Sco, he kind of talked to me. I never told you about this, Sco. He talked to me about making sure the player felt great going into the match, as if that was the most important thing, not what they did well or wrong or not X's and O's, making sure they felt like they had a chance to win. And I never forgot that. And I took that to say Sco was redlining in that practice. Jared Palmer and a few other top doubles guys were right next to you. Remember that, Sco? And I remember Jared pulled me aside and was like, you know what, Coach? His ball is actually pretty good, but he needs to. They gave me a couple pointers from the volleys, and I remember thinking to myself, "Wow, that's gold right there." Like, I hadn't even thought of it that way. I was trying to get Sco to split step and come forward, and ball's coming 110 miles an hour, and they're like, "Yeah, split steps are great if you have time for them."
If you have time.
And at 110 miles an hour, Coach, he says to me, and this is number one in the world doubles, I don't know about you, but when that ball's coming that big, I don't have time to split step. And I'm like, bro, if you ain't got time to split step, you know I ain't got time to split step. And so all of a sudden, I said, Sco, my bad on that one. We ain't got to split step. Let's just try to go forward. But even then, I kind of laughed at it to say, let me really appreciate what he's going through, and let me make sure he's good with what he's doing. We cut that practice short. And Donald was a very different lefty. Donald had angle passes and flick angles and was better on the run than Nadal was, ironically. He didn't like his inside out. Donald loved his backhand. He would hit his backhand and had his forehand angle. And Nadal was looking to hit a backhand to get a forehand, right? So they were very different matchups. Donald was ad court heavy and Nadal was deuce court heavy. So just different matchups. And I knew then, while I was trying to get a lefty, it wasn't the same kind of lefty. And so anyway, long story, that I remember cutting that practice short just because I felt like he was redlining. It was probably a good thing. And the next day, you had to hit with somebody who's pretty good, Scott. I can't remember. And I remember thinking to myself, you with Agassi, I want to say, at some point, I can't remember if it was that year or the year before, but you were teeing off on Andre pretty good. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, he feels good now. He feels like he's ready to play again, and he's playing his game. And I'm like, you know what? He'll be all right. And then, of course, the match came and he played pretty well. Alvin, 4 set points in that second set. You know what I mean? I replay him, unfortunately, too many times in my mind, but he was every bit there. And I tell
no, I remember you said that to me. You told me 4 set points. I went back and I was looking at it. Sco had 4 break points.
He was serving 6-5.
Nadal was serving 6-5, low 40. So I guess it was
right.
Yeah. Getting back on it, but yeah, I was waiting for that, and it was a ride. It was a ride. Like it was a complete ride. Yeah. So yeah, get to that match, right? And I think you showed to yourself that you could play at that level, and you felt that way going in. You
Yep.
showed it in the match. Probably felt that way coming out. Not the next year, but the year after. So TH mentioned earlier in juniors you played doubles with Novak, right? Your first U.S. Open you play against Roddick. Your second U.S. Open you get Nadal. Your fourth U.S. Open, Fed time, right? Sorry,
Don't
bro.
get me started on
Tough
USTA
draws.
conspiracy theory. I'm still riding that train. 20 years later, I'm like, you know
Tough
what's funny?
draws.
Chanda Rubin's coach. We were leaving school. You might remember this. Chanda Rubin's coach. We were leaving the Open, and he said it loud for everybody to hear. He said, "I've never seen a player get this bad a draw 4 years in a row." And he said it loud. How do you? He says it's not. Whatever he was saying, it's not feasible for a player to get that many bad draws in a row. It's if it ain't him on purpose, I don't know what is. And he was loud. He was like, he was almost pissed for us. Like, how do you give a brother that many top seeds back to back to back to back? And I said, I don't know if he pissed somebody off or he didn't come from the USGA Training Center, but this man, I tell you, it's and when I tell you he was yelling loud in the lobby, as loud as a person can say it and still sound civil, like he's not upset. But it wasn't. I was 10 feet away from him, and he was speaking to the people at the desk. He was speaking to people upstairs, and
Right. Yeah.
and it wasn't for me. He could have told me that in private.
Right.
But I say it to say, hey, it was all for the good, man. And I tell you what, it was one of those things. I look back at it now, and Sco, you appreciate it, I'm sure, more now than before. The three players, that you played with, obviously, and against, end up being the best of all time. Not many people can say that they played all three of them at, in their career. You know what I mean? There's probably 100, maybe, give 100 in the world over that 15, 20-year span that played all three. And you played.
So I had to qualify to play Federer first
Right.
round.
Won
Three
three matches.
unbelievable tough matches to qualify.
In the main draw
Yes.
quality, Alvin, that year. You know what I mean? And so I say, and then
Right.
of course Drew, and of course then Drew Fed, right, of all players. And that match was to me one of my favorite matches. I mean, this match here was solid. I got it on the back of my screen, but dude, you hit a backhand, you hit a ball, a backhand up, another backhand angle on Fed, went backhand to backhand.
Another backhand. It all comes back to the backhand.
He ripped the backhand. Fed just knew Fed had this little play, Alvin, that I knew he was going to be looking for. He'd roll you deep, he'd chip you short, knowing you try to go line, and he'd bait you into going cross court. He was ready for the running forehand, right? And I told Sco, when he hits that short chip, whatever you do not go down the line. Angle it back. Fed, sure enough, first three games, backhand to backhand. He hits this big backhand deep. He hits this short chip. And Sco gets low on this, almost scrapes his ground on the asphalt and scrapes his knee on the asphalt and hits this backhand angle back. And Fed about broke his neck trying to get this ball back. And he looked over at Sco like, you've been watching film. Like, he gave him that look like, you've been scouting me out. Like, nobody goes cross court off that ball.
I remember sitting upstairs and asking Torrey, like, when he hits that backhand slice short, what do I do? I can't come in. Like, he's baiting me. What do I do? And I remember Torrey was like, whatever you do, you just don't go line. Just don't go down the line.
Yeah. I said, go slice back.
So, like, okay,
yeah.
So, yeah, you qualify into that one, right? Tough quality run, but you get those dubs, 3 wins in a row, and then you fall into the draw, and you're like, okay, I got Fed. At that point, you're probably thinking like, man, the USDA really does hate me. Like, this is like every year. But how are you processing that match going into it? As you've had some experience with this before.
I was playing very well at that time. And actually all year in that year, I wasn't playing good. But that guy needed a wild card to get into qualifying U.S. Open. My ranking dropped. I was not playing good. And I remember I had a very good, 2 weeks of practice with Torrey, Bobby Reynolds, Robbie Ginepri in there. I played so well Going into New York, I was like, I'm gonna be here for a while for qualies. I remember I was so confident. So go through that. I'm playing Fed first round, and I'm like, oh man, it's gonna be really tough. Like I'm gonna have to play perfect, to beat someone like this. I'm playing the best player at that time in his prime.
Yeah, '07 Fed was not a game. Was not a game.
And I remember going for too much. I was so much into like I just didn't believe I could do it.
Which is very different than the Nadal match.
Deep down, not on the surface, like deep down. Because this is going to come to the next thing I'm going to tell you. I didn't like, and I look at that match. I've watched that match, and I was like, dude, I was hitting pretty good. Like, and I didn't think at the time I was.
The Fed match.
The Fed match.
Okay.
So he beats me. I always played doubles and mixed doubles when I was at the Open. So I remember maybe it was the next day I'm playing double or mixed doubles. I can't remember. This guy comes to me in the locker room. It's just a normal guy. I've seen with Fed sometimes. And he asked me, hey, Roger wants to hit with you. Do you wanna play? And I was like, what? Why would this guy ask to hit with me? Like he just beat me. Like I was like, well, I'm not gonna say no. Sure, of course. He's like, okay, I'll be right back. He comes back 10 minutes later. Hey, Roger will meet you tomorrow on P5. I'm like, okay. And I remember I had a flight to Atlanta that day in the afternoon. He was late in the afternoon. And he was like 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, something like that. I don't know. So I show up to the courts not knowing if I'm ever really going to hit with Fed. No idea. I haven't seen. He hasn't asked, hey, we're going to play, we're going to practice, nothing. Right before we go out to practice, he comes over to my locker and was like, hey, good to see you again. Let's go out and practice. I'm like, okay, so this is real. Yeah. So we're walking out there and everyone loves Fed. And we start practicing and then we start playing a set. And I'm just like, in my mind, I'm just like,
is this real?
Why am I here? Like, of course I want to be here, but like, why am I out here? And Fed is being the nicest guy, talking to me on changeover, any question I have, anything. I'm asking him questions. He is open, all of that stuff. Yeah. So then, hello? There we go.
Good.
So then I finally ask him on a changeover. I say, Roger, why'd you ask me to hit with you today? I played your first round. You beat me down. Why'd you ask me to hit? He goes, and this is one of the best tennis moments in my life. You were out hitting me from the baseline when we played. I just needed to see your ball again. Wow. And I didn't know what to say. Yeah. Wow. And after that, I'm looking at him like, when am I going to get like a prank on me? Like this is all like fake, like he just wants to embarrass me or something. Right. Yeah, like a camera moment. And he was that's a true professional there. He was like, you were out hitting me from the baseline. I need to see it again. And I was like, okay. And then that always right there hit me with, I'm never as bad as I think and I'm never as good as I think.
Yep.
Right. Right there kind of hit me like, wow, like I got to have more confidence in myself. This is the guy, the best ever and I love Fed. I mean, I've been a Fed fan forever. And for him to say that, I was like, wow, he's got more confidence in me than my damn self.
That's
big,
wild.
That's
big. Just having watched the matches recently. Yeah, just having watched the matches recently, like even the Nadal match, I felt like you were out hitting Rafa from the baseline, but then just to your point of just the volleys weren't there at that time where they needed to be. Fast forward 2 years for Fed to say the same thing. I mean, I could only imagine what that feels like. Or what that was.
And in the set, it wasn't like when we played a set, it was 6-0, 6-1. It was a 6-4 set. I remember it was a good, tight set. I remember that. And we played, and I was just like, I remember thinking, I'm like, because Fed is so good at any time, I'm like, he can just beat me at any time he wants to. Can he? That's what I'm just thinking, because he's just so good. But, when you're so wrapped into yourself and like, oh man, and this, and you forget like, dude, I have his respect, and he's out here competing just like everybody else. He does not care how great he is and how much he's won. He's out here competing like anybody else, man. He's just trying to get better. And that was it. It's
Yeah.
that simple. It's that simple.
And for those listening, like the Fed does go on to win the tournament that year, right? And also won Australian, final French Open, won Wimbledon that year. Like and we had done that since 04, right? 3 Grand Slams in a row for 4 straight years. So 07 Fed was a joke. Was a 9 of 12 with a couple of finals in Grand Slams in the French Open to Nadal as well. So 07 Fed was a joke,
probably as
joke.
vintage
And you were
as Fed would have been, right? And I want to just
add that was it. That was it.
Right. I want to add on one thing. And why was he that good? Because he was that humble, because he kept working that hard, because he kept trying to find ways to keep getting his game better. And I say that to say a lot of the younger players, a lot of the pro players even today, may not always appreciate that level of vulnerability or that level of real. Just, hey, let me just keep getting better every day. And that is a growth mindset in action. Don't care if I won it. I can still improve. And in that match, Alvin, and I'll speak to this, and Sco can remember it. There were 4 break points on each side. Sco had 4, Fed had 4. Sco lost all 4, unfortunately. Fed converted all 4. There was a few double faults, maybe some nerves issues, Sco, right? You can appreciate that. But Sco lost, I want to say it was 3, 2, and 4, something like that. I think it was 4 breaks. But Sco had 4 breaks against Fed. And I want to make sure that point is drilled home, the fact that it wasn't a blowout. And if anything, this was, with all respect to Andy and Rafa, the best player in the world in the era, not just at the tournament, not defending champ, the best player in the era that you were playing against at that time, and you had 4 break points in those 3 out of 5 sets. So I mentioned that to say, it's funny looking back on it. It's been 20 years. It's been 18, how many years, right? But if there's one thing you should take away from all that, Scoville Jenkins, is that you were in the conversation. You earned these guys' respect. And isn't it really all that you want at the end? The matches and money and all that are great. Isn't the respect?
That's it, man.
Isn't the respect as much as anything else? Isn't that what the real? You'll get the money, you'll spend the money. The records are great. They'll be broken by somebody one day. But the respect of that guy in the locker room. I was there 3 years later, Sco, with Jamie. Fed is doing an interview with 3 or 4 people walking around. He stops the interview. Jamie, obviously, I'm not in the women's locker room, obviously, so I'm around the corner. I'm waiting for her outside, waiting for transition to go home. And Fed stops the interview and says, "Excuse me." And he looks over at me and says, "Coach, good to see you again. How's your player?" And I said, "Hey, Roger, he's well. Thank you so much for asking." And he says, "Good to see you." And then he goes on with his interview, stops his interview, Sco, to say hey to me, your coach. That also shows you the respect he had for you. He didn't know me outside of you, but he remembered me from that match with you. And he wanted it with you, if you recall, even back when you were still playing the junior. Remember that day we got shipped out to New Rochelle for the in a junior match, and the rain, the matches got pushed indoors, so we had to go way out, and so we weren't on site. But his one of his coaches wanted to bring you in with him then years ago. So we had a funny moment, Alvin. Fed had gotten out of the car. He happened to be right in front of us, and Sco actually peeped it. Sco was like, "There's Roger right there." So I walked up to Roger afterwards, one part creep and one part me. "Hey, Roger." And he looked at me like, hey, man, we're going through security right now. I'm like, hey, I noticed you were without a coach right now. I want to let you know I'm available. Let me know. I said, I got my man here. I said, I got my player here. I got to work around his schedule. I said, but I can work you in. And he lets up this big laugh. He says, "Coach, I think I'm okay for right now, but thank you for letting me know." And then I said, "Hey, in all seriousness, let me know if you need a hitting partner." I said, "We'd love to meet you anywhere." And he laughed at me and he says, "Coach, I'll let you know." And sure enough, 3 days later, he lets us know. And it was the funniest thing. He came and found us on the bus, Alvin. So you remember that? We were heading out to the bus to New Orleans. They were shipping us out to an indoor facility. He got us on the bus. "I found you guys. We got a court, 5 o'clock." And we're like, "Man, we got to go play the match. I'm so sorry." And it was literally, he made good on his word. So that just shows you the kind of person that Fed was. I just bumped into him, just, me talking like I normally talk. And he was he was following up on what he said he would do. And that's how you know he's quality people's right there. Is he wasn't too big, wasn't too nothing, and that's always why Roger's still one of my all-time favorite. I mean, that's why he's on a lot of my pictures, Alvin, because that moment we had when we talked, we connected. He was Sko was beating Andre in a couple of tiebreakers at that time, and Fed was on Ashe the next session. That was my picture. And he was, looks like your boy's giving Andre all he can handle. And I'm laughing and I'm kind of smiling yeah, he's kind of giving him the work right now. And me and Fed are both kind of laughing. Agassi's hitting balls out of the stadium. He's hitting ball, and I'm laughing because Agassi ain't no joke. You know what I mean? This is an 8-time Grand Slam champ. And Sko Sr. snagged that picture. That was a moment. It wasn't just a moment, but it was that conversation. That's how personable Roger was. And that's how, it's funny that he, brought Sko back out later at that time and obviously, had the match and all that with him. But, I say it all to say, Sko, you had some phenomenal experiences, bro. You had some of the best of all time, experiences with you. And man, that is something that can never take from you, bro.
That's what I tell the junior players is, everyone's looking at ranking and UTR and want to play this and want to be that and all this. And it's like, good for me. I didn't have UTR back then. Computers were just coming up where you could start looking at rankings a little bit, but like not really. It was just about being there, experiencing it, and getting respect from your peers. Like, I played Marcos Bagdatis 2 times in junior U.S. Open. The same exact score both times, 7-6, 6-1.
Yeah,
and each time he was always like, God, this guy is like so much better than me. So he was a year older than me. So much. I mean, he's good like this. And the one year I can forget the year at U.S. Open, I had a locker really close to his. And I never spoke with him outside the court. He never I never did it. And he talked to me and was like, dude, you're playing well. And it was a moment to me. I was like, you're talking to me? Like, what? And he was like, dude, you're playing good, man. Like, just keep playing, and see those moments like that. They mean that's what you like to get the respect from your peers like that. That's what that was huge.
Yeah.
This is a guy who's beat my first U.S. Open. I get to the second round and play him juniors. And I'm thinking he could beat me 1-1. Like, everyone's telling me how great this guy is. And here, this is my maybe 7th or 8th ITF ever. Like, I'm just lucky to be here. Yeah. And then for that moment to come years later, he'd be like, dude, you're playing good. I'm like, oh, like, that's what we do this for, like that respect that of your peers like that in the locker room. That was a big moment.
Absolutely. We've been going for a while. I think we're gonna end it there. I feel like the stories from Sko is a wealth of, it's a pool of something that just overflows. So we don't want to take too much advantage of it tonight. But I appreciate both of you guys hanging out with us. And we will we'll drop it there. Guys, thanks again. Best of 3. We are out.
Peace.